First of all, are there any Houston fans in the audience here? Oh, okay. Well, you'll forgive us for a little excitement for those online watching from around the country, around the world. You may not know there's a little sporting event that starts this week here in the United States. The World Series, this is Washington's first time in 86 years, yeah. So we're happy. It's a rainy day here, but the sun is shining. So good luck to Houston, but more luck for my Washington Nationals. So thank you again for attending here. We're excited, as you heard from Rosemary. We see this outreach as one of our most important functions, and I'll get into it. I promise this is not I hope it's not a long, boring keynote address. This is really just a pep talk about what you're going to see today, what you're going to hear about today, and what we invite you to talk to us, to ask us questions about. So for those online, for those here, by all means, ask the questions. Even if they get a little bit into the weeds, we might defer something that gets a little too much into the weeds later, so and maybe work with you offline on that. But we can't get to all the questions there online, but we're monitoring them, and later on, if we need to fill in time or if we have time for a Q&A or a little bit of Q&A after each of the presentations, we can go back, we'll try and get as many of the questions answered as we can. So my talk today, the basic, it's like, why are we here? Why are you here? Again, I'll give this pep talk about what you're going to see today, a little bit more information about what's going to happen, and then a little bit of teasing about what's going on now and what's in the near future for drug registration and listing. So, of course, as with any agenda, you begin with number one. So, let's face it. The real reason you are here is because of this. This is the law, this is the regulation that requires drug companies, anyone who manufactures a product for commercial distribution in the United States, must register their establishment with the government, with the FDA, and must submit a list, thus list their products with us. And so you have Section 510B is the general, anyone who manufactures must register. Section 510I, for those of you who are watching online from other countries, that's a section of our law that says any manufacturing establishment in a foreign country who offers for import must register. And then 510J simply says, well, if you have to register because of one of those other sections, then you must submit the list also. And then 5020 is the watch out, the finger wag. If you don't do this, if there is a drug in commercial distribution and it was manufactured in an establishment that is not duly registered, it's potentially misbranded. And that's why we have the authority to make you do what you have to do. The 21 CFR 207, I call that our Bible. That spells out all the regulatory requirements. And we'll get into a little bit more of that in the next slide. And then, of course, there's a guidance for industry that's out right now. It's been out for a very long time. It's been out since the dawn of SPL submissions for registration and listing, the providing regulatory submissions in electronic format. I'll get into it later, but we have some more guidances. We're trying to update that. We have some stuff in the works for you for the future. There's my little fun graphic. It's the law. Okay. So again, the real reason you are here. This is simply I copied all the text from the government printing office. They have a wonderful online version of the current regulation 207, and this is just text here. But if you go to the GPO website, this is all hyperlinked. You click on any of those sections, you get the complete text. So you can read the regulations for yourself and you can see what's required. And if you have any questions, you can send a question to us and say, Paul, I don't know what this means, or what if it's the third Tuesday of an odd month and my company does this, do I have to register? So we get those types of questions. There we go. Okay. And so what does all that stuff on the previous slide mean? Well, it means you must do all this annually now. You must review and update all your registration and listing data. And most importantly, and something we're focusing on this year a little more than previous, is updating the contact information and the US agent information and all the importers. It's important to review all that data and keep it up to date, not just for our sake and for our regulation, but for yours also. Registration must be renewed every year between October 1st and December 31st. And again, that's why we schedule this event at this time of year. We are amidst the renewal season, the tax season, if you will, for registration and listing. As we advertised in our marketing materials, those of you here, we can help you get it done now before you go home. So you can go home to your boss and say, yep, we're all registered, we've renewed, we've updated, we've certified our listings, we're done, we don't have to do anything else until December 31st. And for those of you here and those of you online, we recommend you do it sooner than later. Don't wait till the last minute, because the last minute is during the holiday season, and yes, I am not that bad of a boss. I do allow my staff to take some time off. So we may not be able to help you at 11:30 at night on December 31st, okay? Technically, you can still get it in and you can get registered, but if you get that SPL rejection, we may not have someone around to troubleshoot between the holidays. So start early at least and give us the chance to help you if you need it. And actually, to that note about December 31st, note that all registrations automatically expire at midnight, or I should say, yeah, midnight January 1st. So if you renew late, you can always reactivate your registration immediately, but it will show that little gap. Technically, yeah, you are out of compliance, but you know, if you do miss the deadline, just get it in as soon as you can. Just get back into compliance. And the same goes for the product listings. And you're going to hear a lot about product listings. This is a fairly new requirement with the new version of the regulation that came out in 2016. We now have the annual renewal, we call it certification requirement for product listings. If you don't specifically update an SPL, a product listing, an NDC, during the calendar year, then you at least need to certify that that NDC is up to date and all of its data. But you can only certify during this registration season here. So, and you'll hear a lot more about product certification and what we're doing with those listings that aren't certified. And I think that's why a lot of people are here. I got to do my little fun graphics here before I move on. And for some of you old timers here, I'm calling myself an old timer. Sorry, Mr. Techie, I hit the microphone. If you were longing for the old days, and I hate SPL and all this complicated electronic submissions, this is what you used to have to do. And you've got the two versions of the forms. The one on the right is a registration form. The one on the left is the listing form. And the registration form actually used to look like the listing form too, where you had to put one letter in each block. And can you imagine doing that for 100 products over time, then clipping them all together and mailing them in a box to the FDA? That's what used to happen up until 2009 when we started this. And then, of course, we had to unwrap all that, read each letter, type each letter in, and you know, the potential of misreading someone's handwriting, I can remember, and I know David Mazik is there. We used to come around every once in a while and say, do you know what that says? We can't read this person's handwriting. So if you ever long for the old days, the good old days, well, it wasn't quite the good old days as much as we remember. And now here's your first test for the day. And you don't worry, I won't claim that you're showing your age. Does anybody remember the names of these forms, what the numbers were? Do you work in marketing? Do you do OPDP submissions? Oh, because You got it, you almost got it right. Not 22, it's 2656. Yeah, exactly. 22 is 2253 or the D, well, I used to work when it was DDMAC, the OPDP marketing submissions. Yeah, very good. All right, you get a bonus. You get, we'll give you some candy in the back or something. I can't give you a free pass on a warning letter. Sorry, not allowed to do that. Okay, so that's why you guys are here. You've got some stuff that you have to do for us. But why are we here? Why are the DRLS staff here? Why does SBIA go to all this trouble to organize an event for us? Well, I'd like to start out, and for those of you who attended the event last year, you may remember this slide. This is the vision, mission, and values statement for our office here. We envision a complete and accurate registration listing database. That is our #1 goal. That's what we're shooting for on the horizon. And so our mission to achieve that is very simple. We want to enable you guys. We want to help industry give us the data we want so that we can disseminate that data. We can give it out to those who need it. It's really quite simple. But to achieve that, we've found that it's a better use of our time to spend a whole day with you guys or an hour with someone on the phone to help them get the records correct, to get us the data we want, complete and accurate, than to do a warning letter, than to do a compliance case against you. And we recognize that you guys are our customers with that philosophy, with that frame of mind. But having said that, we have a very important value at the bottom. We will help you, but we will be firm in ensuring that the requirements are met. So we are firm in our commitment to ensure compliance. And you're going to hear a little bit about how we go about creating and carrying out a compliance case when we do find errors, when we do find people omitting stuff. Okay, so given that wonderful, hey, we're here to help frame of mind here, this is the job we think we're doing. We think we're this wonderful help desk, and that's me leaning in, trying to be all cool. But I'm sure this is probably more of what you feel like, right? So, and as a result of that, you probably already heard, we have over 2,000 registrants today online. And even as I was coming up, Ray back there was telling me how the number of online connections we have just continued to rise. So we know you guys get frustrated. We're here to help. We get frustrated too sometimes, and every once in a while, those of you who have talked to me on the phone, I'll throw the government under the bus. Yeah, regulations can be tough, but we're here to help. Okay, but why is this important? We still want our data. And just so you get a sense that this isn't just government red tape. This isn't just to put you in line for the next inspection. All right, we actually use this data for a lot of stuff. So, and most recently, things that you probably or hopefully had heard about in the news. You may remember the big recall we had beginning last year when they discovered, is it NDMA? Yeah, NDMA in the presence of the quote sartan drugs. So they came to DRLS. They came to the listing data where we could look up all the drug products containing those various sartan ingredients. And we identified all the manufacturers that you guys had reported to us. And using that, we were able to contact and propagate this. It started out, it wasn't a huge recall at first. It was very limited, but we said, hey, you other guys who make these drugs, check your processes, do your tests, find out, who's got the presence of the NDMA, what drugs do we need to recall? And this recall just gradually ripple affected, if that's a verb, it propagated out. It wasn't a big, huge thing all at once. Another use in recent, even this year, this is actually a picture of Hurricane Maria, but whenever we get a big natural disaster, we can go to the DRLS, to the registration data, and say, well, what drug manufacturers are in that affected area? What do they make? Where might there be a drug shortage? Is there a sole source manufacturer in Puerto Rico? That's a picture of Maria right over. You can see the faint outline of Puerto Rico there. Were there any sole source drugs made in Puerto Rico? We could answer that question. And of course, we did it most recently with Hurricane Dorian. Fortunately, Dorian sort of missed a full-on hit with the United States, but it still affected the coastlines there. Oh, and the other one, this was a few years back, but if you remember the Fukushima, the nuclear plant that had the explosion or the fire there as a result of the earthquake and the tsunami, we were able to identify all the products made in Japan that might be affected and just keep an eye out. And we had, I don't want to say we put on import alerts, but we were able to monitor those products coming in for possible radioactivity. Okay, so let's start talking about today. So we're going to start out after I get done running my mouth. We're going to start with labeler code requests and registration by Walman Pui Pui, as she goes by, and Don Duggan. Okay, and there's your wonderful, you all know about these, the DUNS numbers and the NDC numbers and such. And of course, we'll go over the basics. When and how do you register, and when and how do you get a labeler code? It's a bit, it's a lot like registration, but there's always that extra step that some people seem to forget about to seal the labeler code in, seal the assignment. You'll learn about the different business operations or qualifiers and such. And of course, reminding you again to update your contact information. Okay, next we'll hear from Troy, David, and unfortunately Sujin won't be here, so you'll have to listen to me again for the product reporting, the 503B stuff. But we'll talk about NDC reservation. It's actually been in place for a little while, but you may not know necessarily about it too much, or how to do it, or why even to reserve an NDC. So we hope you'll find that interesting. Troy will go over all the basics for the drug listings, but specifically, Troy's going to talk about some of the errors that he's seeing. He's one of our top SPL technician guys, and he knows all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I think that'll be a very valuable presentation. And then I'll do the review for those of you who either work for a compounder, or maybe you're a consultant who has a 503B compounder, or perhaps as a client. I'll review those requirements and the submissions a little bit. It's very basic. Again, as you'll see in the presentation, if you want more the real detailed information, this isn't a 503B session. I will just refer you mostly to the websites and all the published information. Or if you have a specific question, I might be able to put you in touch with one of our SMEs back at headquarters. Okay, and then this afternoon after lunch, I think we seem to be getting a lot of questions on right now, because it's very hot item right now with our office, are the certification and the inactivations that we've announced, that we've started on all the uncertified and the expired listings. So Reggie and Layla are going to give you a whole earful full of that. We expect a lot of questions, so go ahead and ask them. So Tasneem will come in, and she'll talk about our compliance program and what happens when we find an error, and what are the top errors we find. And that, again, that's some of the focus of this whole day are, we're seeing the patterns. We're seeing the same errors pop up over and over again. So pay attention to that, and just make sure, it's just a reminder, one, to check for that stuff, and don't just always copy and paste from another product listing and assume everything's okay. But then we'll also, one of the most important things I think that Tasneem will talk about is this process. When we find an error, this is why the contact information is so important. Our first goal, again, remember in the mission, is to get the data right. So we send you a communication. It's just an email that says, hey, we found an error. And there's a lot of government speak in there about what you have to do and stuff, but it's really just, here's a reminder. Let's do a little research, review your data. Here's what you have to fix. Please resubmit. And I see I'm running out of time here, but I'll move a little quickly here. The other part of this session will be Julian, and this is something a little different this year. Julie, we're going to have you all break up into groups, and you're going to have a little assignment where you get to troubleshoot, and you're going to solve the problem. You're going to say what needs to be fixed. And Julian has these little case studies, and we'll have people, our FDA people will be floating around if you want to ask questions. But it won't be anything too difficult. Don't worry, we won't make you solve world problems right now. Okay, and then finally at the end of the day, this is new for us, or a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We call it the town hall. It's just a wonderful Q&A session, the opportunity for you guys to let's have a clearinghouse of the questions. Oops, back up one. And I'll get into that just a little bit more, but ideas, if you read the pre-registration, the marketing materials, specifically, we'd like ideas on what we can do better in our outreach. What messages do you want to hear? What venues do you attend that we could attend? What type of media can we use? And perhaps there's something better than always having conferences or webinars and stuff. Okay, so quickly, just to finish up here, what's going on now, what's going on moving forward. As announced, the big news right now in our office is the Federal Register in August. We announced that, hey, we've got tens of thousands of listings that are old as dirt. Electronic listings that go way back to the very beginning of electronic listings 10 years ago, where someone submitted something to us and we never heard from them again. So that's why we implemented this new requirement. You have to renew your listings every year. And we announced in August, hey, all right, if it's not renewed by such and such a date, we're going to start inactivating them. We're going to start taking them off. I don't want to say, we're not deleting them, we're taking them out of the publications and considering them inactive. And you'll hear more information. I don't want to get into too much and spoil Layla's thunder there. But we've started that process, and I know many people have been interested in that. And as you can see, and I don't know what the latest number is, but we have already inactivated thousands of records, and the process continues. All right, we do have a toolkit. This slide is a little premature. The toolkit is not yet ready for prime time, still going through clearances. So that's to be coming soon. But we're also planning for the future. A lot of you are aware of the NDC number and how we're getting higher and higher up in those numbers there, and our labeler code is approaching 100,000. We're aware of that. We know that some changes are going to be made. We had a public hearing about it almost a year ago, last November. So we're not operating in a vacuum here. We know to work with people to get input. We've taken those public comments. I can't say anything about it, I'm not allowed to, but don't worry. We know about it, we're working, we'll give plenty of time and warning and all that stuff. Okay, and then finally, as I said, we have this wonderful opportunity for you guys to talk to us, to give us suggestions, to ask us questions at the end for the future of DRLS outreach. That's a heat map, actually. That is as of late September of the heat map of the world of where the registered establishments are in the world according to our database. And so we want a more global reach. And so we need you to tell us about new subject matter, new events. Are there any other professional associations we can reach out to? And just as an example of our commitment to do different things, to reach out. Recently in September, I was fortunate enough to travel to China for 2 weeks, and I spoke at 2 industry conferences, and we had a bilateral meeting with the Chinese FDA. They now call them the NPMA. And then I spoke to the graduate students and faculty there at Peking University. It was a wonderful opportunity and a valuable learning experience, I think, for them and for us. And it's those types of novel and new outreach that I think will really give us some bang for the buck. So thank you for your time. I see my big red time's up is up there. So I look forward to this day. I hope you do. And let's have a good session.